But I'm Rika Nakazawa. I am here as Chief Commercial Innovation for NTT. And thank you for joining our session today. It's always difficult to be after lunch, so I'll do my best to be your second cup of coffee. How many people have heard of NTT? Does anybody know NTT? Okay, so I'll start with that because that's going to be why I think I'm here talking about this. NTT stands for Nippon Telegraph Telephone. We don't do telegraphs anymore. And telephone is a fraction of our business. And we are 340,000 team members all around the world. So we are no longer just a domestic telephone company in Japan. We are a global technology solutions company, and we invest $3.5 billion on R&D, on research and development every year. And so my role is really looking at some of our investments that we make in R&D and frontier technologies. And just to contextualize why that's a personal passion of mine is that I've been in emerging technologies my entire career. I started in the first internet wave, which is definitely aging me at this point. And then I was in the mobile industry when NTT Docomo launched iMode, which iMode I think was a precursor to iTunes. And then I was at Accenture for a few years. At Accenture, I was working on frontier technologies. And then I went to go work for this company that nobody knew how to pronounce because it was spelled NVIDIA. This is back in 2006. So like, NVIDIA? What? No NVIDIA? So I spent a few years at NVIDIA. And as I say, please don't ask me how much I would have if I held on to my stock, because I sold my stock when I left in 2010. But that's okay. Money isn't everything.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that's important.
So anyway, so that's just a little bit about me. I'm from Japan. My mother's German. So I speak 3 languages, not because of any intelligence I have. It's just grew up with that in the house and went to the international school in Tokyo, went to the States for college. So a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thank you. And I was using Copilot, so I knew everything what you just said before. If you would introduce NTT as Nippon, I would guess that more people would raise their hand because NTT is not that known brand. But back to our today's discussion, and the topic that is there is Azerbaijan's exponential opportunities in AI era. I would not ask you what Azerbaijan should do. I believe it's not that wide known information what Azerbaijan is doing. So you could guess what next should we do. But in general, if we take comparable markets, like small country in intersection of roads, with particular, I would say, interesting political situation, what would comparable countries, including Azerbaijan and maybe wider region of Central Eurasia, as we say, it's Caucasus and Central Asia, should focus on in order to be aligned and in tune with what we call AI era.
I like how you say interesting political situation. That's such a balanced way of depicting the state of the world. So as somebody who is European and Asian by DNA, I actually love coming to this part of the world. I see a lot of people that look like my brothers and sisters. They are Eurasian like me. And as somebody who grew up Eurasian and being here in Azerbaijan, it does strike me that there is this very interesting balance and dynamic that a country like Azerbaijan has to strike in the balance of things. And especially Azerbaijan being so rich in energy with oil and gas, really being part of the core of the economy. And of course, Azerbaijan coming out of the history, but also having recently hosted COP with Belém right around the corner, the next COP, and sustainability being a big part of my DNA. That's one of the books that I wrote. So in some ways, you could say Azerbaijan is a small country, but on the other hand, it's a very significant and strategic country in terms of where the world is going and the opportunities, and also particularly the stress and strain that AI is going to cause on energy systems. And so there's a couple of parallels when you ask me what should a small country like Azerbaijan do and think about is, of course, is to look at your core capabilities and competencies against the backdrop of a lot of things that are shifting. I want to congratulate StrategEast for putting a forum like this together, Anatolian team, because I think these kinds of conversations and having people come from different parts of the world and different expertise to connect and network and to really try to not get distracted by the political noise and understand what is the core mission of what we need to do as a global community. And so when we think about some of the infrastructure needs for the future of AI, and NTT, by the way, is number 3 in data centers, and data centers is a big topic, is to think about from a strategic capability perspective, how does Azerbaijan's capabilities and differentiation around energy really position it in a place of catapulting things forward as a nexus to the region? And by the way, I'm pursuing a PhD right now, which is a little crazy. But my doctorate is with the School of Computer Science and Engineering in Luxembourg. Now, I don't know if anybody's thought Luxembourg and Azerbaijan in the same sentence in that context, but there's an interesting parallel there because Luxembourg too is population 600,000 during the weekends. And then during the week with all the people that come into Luxembourg, it's over 1 million, right? But still a small country. Another small country, Luxembourg is also very significant because they're right next to Brussels, Belgium, and Belgium being the hub for EU and Luxembourg being a financial cornerstone for Europe. Another small country that is significant is Singapore, right? Another key country that we have in our portfolio at NTT and NTT Data. So each of those countries, as small countries, are leveraging their core capabilities. So going back to Azerbaijan, energy rich, I think having a firm footing on the possibilities today with looking out to the future, because you can't necessarily rely on oil and gas because renewables and nuclear, the compounded annual growth rate of that is phenomenal. Right? Between 2023 and 2033, it's going to be 90% growth in renewables. So thinking from a core competency perspective and enriching that, because the Middle East is, right? Saudi Arabia is famously looking at renewables and this is all to feed the energy hungry part of AI, which I experienced at NVIDIA. At NVIDIA, I was working on a GPU on a phone. And some of our experiments we were doing, you couldn't put your phone in your pocket because the phone would get too hot because the GPU is using a lot of energy. So I think for Azerbaijan is really taking advantage of what you have available today to help catapult you forward. I think it's also about talent. I know there's going to be some discussions this afternoon about talent. And part of what I also think is really important is that it used to be that new talent coming in were people that need to be trained, and you have the senior executives that are looking after the newcomers. But in many ways, you have now there's this notion of two-way mentoring where the AI natives are coming in and the senior folks are needing to learn from them. And at the end of the day, there is going to be a massive shift in terms of the kinds of jobs that are going to be part of the ecosystem and the economy. But I think ultimately being up here as a Eurasian and saying this to Azerbaijanis is finding that right balance and the ability to successfully pivot around this fulcrum of where Azerbaijan can have a greenfield opportunity, because that's really where it is. It's greenfield. You don't have a lot of the baggage that some other developed countries are going to have to overcome.
Cool, thank you. So it's what I hear is to focus on unique what we have and find the green space to go forward. So in that sense, I again back to the comparable markets. We're not like where these old technologies made, like not the big markets like US or Europe or China. And then just recently we had anniversary of Academy of Science of Azerbaijan, where the Mr. President gave a speech, and he stressed AI as an important milestone for us to focus on. There are good side and bad side of it. People who were listening him were way over 60, but the good side is that this is the priority for the government. There is AI strategy adopted, and we are not producing it. So what would be your thinking on both public-private partnership in this area, and how our country or the region could partner with big guys like Google's, Microsoft's, and the rest, NTT, to develop this strategy that is adopted in order not to lose time inventing the wheel from the scratch.
Private-public partnerships are going to be critical, and one area in particular where I've been dwelling a lot of late is space and satellite. So I know Azercosmos is an agency here, and you have 2 satellites, telecommunication satellites that have gone up. You have ambitions to put Earth observation satellites, which is no surprise because of the geographic expanse of Azerbaijan and the infrastructure, especially around oil and gas and energy. And space and satellite is very difficult unless it's a private-public partnership because it's capital intensive. There's geopolitical implications. Defense and intelligence is a big part of the ecosystem. And when you look at different endeavors, and since you brought up Google, Pichar just mentioned Google announced a couple days ago their latest moonshot, which really it's not a moonshot, it's a sunshot. Let me explain why. So Google just announced that they're going to be putting their AI chip in orbit on satellites, and it's called Suncatcher. It's called Project Suncatcher. And this was announced, I think, on Tuesday, and it's with Planet Labs, a publicly traded satellite company. Amazing group of people, by the way, Planet. And so part of the push is this whole idea of data centers in space. And that's not, on the one hand, that sounds crazy because when we think of data centers, we think of these huge, massive structures in space. But really the idea is having these very elegant distributed computing clusters in orbit. Meanwhile, there's another initiative with NVIDIA. So NVIDIA is funding a venture called StarCloud to also put data center infrastructure in space. And the reason why is because there's plenty of solar power in space. And it's cold unless you get too hot to the sun. And the heat sink part is a very specific technology. So I think that one of the areas to look at is private-public partnerships in space. And as I mentioned, Google's doing some things there. NTT, we have a whole initiative called C89, stands for Constellation 89, which is our version of connecting a lot of our various space and satellite endeavors. We're working with Amazon Kuiper on their distribution. Amazon's trying to compete with Starlink, which is, so Starlink, okay, so Starlink has 8,000 LEO communication satellites in orbit. And so, Amazon has a lot to catch up on that. So, but in other areas as well, when it comes to sovereign domain capabilities, that's also where private-public partnerships are going to be key. And I do know that the hyperscalers, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, they're all really wanting to pay attention to some of the interesting politics that are happening right now, because all of a sudden, when you have American companies that have international presence, how do you pursue an agenda of sovereign domain capability, sovereign AI, all of that? So I think those public-private partnerships and understanding, and again, the balance to strike, and what Azerbaijan has an opportunity to learn from looking at, for example, US versus Europe in terms of regulation. So some of the criticism is that there's too much regulation in Europe and not enough in the US. So taking insights from what's working, what's not, is also an opportunity for Azerbaijan to work with industry to make that happen. But I'm a huge fan and big believer that those private-public partnerships in country, as well as with other ecosystem collaborations that you can enable, especially when it comes to data center infrastructure, because there's going to, like Spain is going to see a 30% increase in data centers over the next 5 years, right? Virginia, which is one state in the United States, their economy around data centers is $9 billion, right? So finding these public-private partnerships that are going to accelerate regionally, but also in collaboration with the surrounding ecosystem. And again, it's not just terrestrially, but thinking about the space ecosystem, I think is key.
Thank you. And maybe the last question, but I'm ex-Microsofty myself, and I remember when our government discussed and kind of proposed to Microsoft to start data centers here back in 2010, 11, 12, every time they met, they suggested, but never happened. Because of, again, geopolitics, unresolved conflict, tectonical things in our region. But then, as in Microsoft, the main lever for the company was how much you would consume it yourself, the cloud that will be built here. And that's why there's an idea. We are part of Caucasian region, Central Asian plus Caucasus, and then we're also part of Organization of Turkic States. There are 6 countries. Yes, 6 countries in that, which are 4 in Central Asia, 1 here. So do you think we have more chances to attract the attention of big guys individually as each country, or as a wider market, being Central Asia, Caucasus, maybe Turkey, maybe Pakistan, in that area? Is it still about how much money would the host region pay to these guys, or it's beyond that now?
No, maybe one other thing I'll bring up, that for people that want to pay attention to some of the bigger, massive shifts that are happening, it's kind of like an earthquake where you don't feel the tremble until the shifts happen at the surface, is this idea of moving from electronic to photonic systems. Something called the ION Global Forum, the Innovative Optical and Wireless Network. So the idea is that we will be using photons instead of electrons to compute. And this is one of the waves that we believe are happening. The reason why I bring up ION, the Innovative Optical Wireless Network, it's not an NTT solution. ION is a global consortium. We started with 3 members 5 years ago. It was NTT, Sony, and Intel. Now there's over 170 members. And so I think about your question less binary and more about the design, system design. So even if you are a small player from a monetary perspective of level of investment or consumption or use, I think if you find how you strategically fit within a system design of how everything comes together, that is where the opportunity is, right? Because it's like a lever. Like if you have a lever that's long, you can lift considerable weight with just a little bit of a push here, but you have to find the right setup and spot to have that kind of leverage. So, I know we've run out of time. That went by really quick, and it's not just because I'm jet lagged, but I'm just super excited, very excited for this region. And I think these kinds of discussions are absolutely necessary. And I really highly encourage everybody to stay curious and stay positive and open the conversations, and don't get too distracted by noise of things, and to anticipate that there's going to be massive shifts that are coming up, and that we're going to be in a world where, I plan to live to 120. So there'll be multiple generations in the workforce. I plan to still be working I don't call it working, doing what I do, I suppose. So, but I just really want to thank you for your leadership. And again, to StrategEast for hosting this very important forum. And I look forward to connecting with everyone. If you're on LinkedIn, you can find me there. Please reach out to me. I try to be very accessible. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We're already connected, so I'll ask you questions offline about the last response to my question. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
Chat, GPT, and Copilot were right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.